Well, hi. Welcome to Positive Approach to Care's webinar series. My name is Shelley Edwards, and I'm one of the PAC instructors and speakers. And I'll be with you today to talk about this webinar called Beyond Headphones, Using Music to Make a Difference. So thought I'd start with a little bit of a PowerPoint to show you what we're talking about today. So what I'm hoping we're going to cover, this webinar actually asks a lot of questions, and it's going to give you some opportunity to think about how you use music in your life as well as in dementia care. So we're going to start by looking at what are the traditional uses of music, like group singing and entertainment. And then we're going to look at a number of different ways that we might use music in dementia care, such as socialization and connection, how to initiate movement, trunk strengthening, that's your whole body, breath control, and maybe some time filters. Okay, so let's start the video now, and I'll be back.
Our topic today is the idea of doing something beyond the headphones. Now, headphones, it's not that it's a bad thing, it's a great thing. And music and dementia and music and awakening and all that, there's a reason for that, and we support that, certainly. Putting headphones on someone because they're having difficulty sorting out the background from the foreground noise, putting headphones on someone so that they can really live in the moment of the music, that's terrific. But if we're using headphones and that's all we're doing, that's really not the name of the game. It's a stepping stone, not a roadblock. And that's sometimes a little bit scary to think that people do the headphones and they think that's all there is to music, because we know it's a lot more than that. So I'm going to start off by asking folks to just consider not dementia at all. Just think about yourself and how you might currently use music for you. How do you use music? What do you do with it? And for me, when I'm in the car, unless I can have a NPR station, I tend to be a music listener. And I like certain kinds of music, and I'll hunt through the dial and find them. I also have Pandora because I like certain genre of music, and it gives it to me that way. And then there are other systems out there as well. But I use music when I'm going somewhere, or I want to relax, or I want to do a variety of things for me, because music is my friend. But other people have different uses for music. So I'm going to bet everybody on here has ways that they engage with music. I'm a sing-along sort of person, or a hum-along, or a dance-along kind of person, but some people are not. And the second piece of this question, now pause for a second so we know how we might use music for us. How do we use music for people that we care for in the world of dementia? What kind of things do you notice people are doing with music? And I'm going to have Corey show a clip, because I'm going to show you the most frequent way that our activity department or our engagement personnel tend to use music. And it's one of two ways. What you're going to see is one way, and then there's one other way that it typically gets used. Anything more than headsets. So we're going to go beyond the headphones, and this is the first step beyond the headphones. So Corey, when you're ready, I'll quit sharing.
Helping people with dementia maintain their spiritual integrity.
So one of the ways that many activities programs use music is they have somebody who knows how to play and knows how to lead music. They have them come in and they use them for sure in spiritual services, whatever that faith or denomination might be. And different people with different faiths would obviously use different music. But bringing in somebody for music as part of a faith program is very common. Corey, can you move it forward until we're singing Sentimental Journey in one of those? And then the other one that comes up a lot is going to be entertainment. So we bring everybody in the building together and we have an entertainer. So here we go. So what everybody thinks is happening is entertainment. I'm going to ask the group to pause, though, for a second and consider what else happened for people while they were, quote unquote, being entertained. Because if we miss what was happening, we don't see the full value of music. So for the folks who are on here, what are some things you noticed people doing while the music was happening that might not have happened if there hadn't have been that kind of music and people weren't doing what they were doing during the musical activity? What'd you notice?
I noticed that they were smiling and engaging with each other.
So what we got was a lot of socialization. So the music actually stimulated people to look at one another, make faces at one another, and actually do rhythm together. So people were starting to copy one another and engage with each other just in the face. So nothing else other than face. Where else did you see some shifts and changes? What were people doing?
Some movement and some dancing and swaying.
So we saw swaying. There are other clips that have dancing. So what we're getting is weight shifts. What's really interesting is how music facilitates weight shifts. So if I want somebody to do some weight shifting, this is a great way to start weight shifting. So many people were doing it in their chairs, but then what you can start to do is have people stand up and have it happen with their feet. So weight shifting is the beginning step for walking more safely, walking more effectively. So it turns out that music can initiate movement. So the use of music, if you use it well and use it thoughtfully, can get people going. What else did you notice? Because it wasn't just feet. So when Melanie, who is the person who's kneeling, is taking her arms and going real wide, what she's actually doing is range of motion for two women in the upper extremity. And we're getting pretty decent range. We're getting people out at about 90 degrees of abduction, extension, and external rotation, which is actually pretty hard to do if you're just trying to get people to do it. But because this motion is so rhythmic, people do it without thinking. And while they were doing that, they were actually doing trunk control too. They were sitting up taller and extending their trunk. So rather than sitting like this, they're more up like this, which doesn't seem that important until you realize when you sit like this, you fold yourself forward over your stomach. And when you sit like this over a long period of time, it's actually harder to take really good, strong, deep breaths of air, and you're not actually using your intercostal muscles through your rib cage, and you're not actually using your diaphragm muscle, and you're not extending your spine. So that when you go to get up like you've been sitting, and you end up curled forward, which increases the risk of falls and fall-related injuries. So music alone with upper body movement. Now, when have you ever seen these motions before? Go ahead, Shelley, I can tell you have.
Conductors, music conductors.
And so right away, if I gave you two, and I don't have them right with me right now, two chopsticks. Mm-hmm. All it takes is chopsticks. And then we start the music. Go ahead and try this. Up tall. Okay, here we go. Dun, 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 dun. Now, how many of you imagine what are you wanting to do with your feet while you're doing this with the upper body? Do, 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 do. Now I've got bilateral integrated movement that's rhythmic. And now the next step might be put down the chopsticks and let's walk. Because what I did is prep you all up. And it all started with entertainment. But we just miss the boat. We miss the bus. We don't take advantage of those opportunities. We don't think, okay, well, now we did music. Now, okay, everybody's done. Instead of, look, we got it going with music. Let's use it. So let's go back to that face thing. If somebody's already singing along, then what I could go is, oh, Shelly, come on. And now I've got Shelly doing something with me. Something to drink? Yeah, because when you use music, it does stimulate the right temporal lobe, but it also can trigger over to the left. And so that's when I might be able to get a language message in. And I actually might be more effective at getting my language message in. So in that one session, there are lots of possibilities. People saw about this much of the whole picture. So thanks, Corey. That was a good kickoff to how we're going to spend a little more time here.
So, hey guys, I'm back. I wanted to give you a minute to process all of this stuff that we just got done talking about, right? How often do you use music in the fashion that Teepa talked about? Did you have any ahas? Do you want to come and see what comes next? Okay, I'll be back in a little bit.
So my best guess is many people actually could and do use music, but I think we use a tiny bit of what's possible because we just don't see the big picture. So when we're thinking about using music, think about when you were younger and really think back over your lifetime for a minute. And how was music used when you were an infant? And if you can't remember your own infancy, which most of you shouldn't be able to do that. I mean, I don't know who you think you are if you think you remember when you were an infant, but maybe you remember when you had an infant. Considering what it is you did with music, how did you use it? And one of the most powerful is often the lullaby. That's for infants. And it's sometimes not even a full lullaby. It's just da, na, 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 and it's like, please go to sleep. Please calm down. So you often use music in infancy as a calmer. We try to take wherever the baby is and bring the baby into a comfort state. And I'm going to put that in your brain and have it stick there a little bit because we want to keep that because it's one of the very first things infants experience outside the womb frequently is mom's voice or dad's voice. And it's like, it's okay. There's my one. Yeah. Do, 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 do. The back and forth, that kind of rhythm. And so when we're trying to offer comfort in the later stages of dementia, we might want to keep in mind how that simplified rhythm, the simple back and forth of a rhythm as opposed to complicated rhythms. And in childhood, interestingly enough, if we think of all the songs that we first learned, some of the very first songs. So I'll give you a couple and then you guys can chime in on a couple. So twinkle, twinkle, little star, high. Okay, so there's one. There's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. Okay, then there's Mary had a little lamb, where, oh, where is pumpkin? Da, na, 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 na. So what do you notice about all those rhythms? Back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So as we're working with people who are starting to struggle with fine motor, we may want to think more along the lines for movement anyway, when we're hooking up music and movement, to think about some fairly simplified rhythm as a starter if we are taking somebody who's fairly immobile and not doing a lot, or they're walking with a less skillful gait, how do we transfer that? How do we modify that? And one of the things to go back to is when you were first moving around and learning how to do things, what kind of rhythm was being used? And it turns out those rhythms are really good rhythms because you put your right hand in, you take your right hand out, because they encourage that back and forth, back and forth, back and forth with a strong beat. I'm going to Kentucky, I'm going to a fair to see a senorita with flowers in her hair. So you can up the beat, up the energy, but it's still that da-da, 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 da-da. The ants go marching. And so what we have is a way to mobilize. Or you could bring it down, and it's a way to quiet or calm. Away in a May. So even think about even the hymns or the songs of faith that children learn, they often have a fairly simplified rhythm. And the reason for that is we want it in the brain. We want it solid in the brain. And once you get the rhythm, we're actually working on concepts of language, concepts of letters, concepts of counting, concepts of tasks, left, right, head, shoulders, knees, and toes. And what we have is a tool then, once we establish rhythm, that allows us to get more data in the brain because we can get it in with the ease of rhythm. So take a drink, have a drink. Want a drink? How about a drink? Oh, look at that. How about a drink? Oh, yeah. Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola. So we can start with music, but then we could go to a rhythm because music, rhythm, words. Now in adolescence, what is music all about in adolescence? What's going on with adolescence? What's going on with music there? What do you think, Shelley? What are some things that come to you when you were an adolescent, a teenager?
Well,
what was
one is ways to connect with people, dancing, and romance, whatever happens to be happening.
Yeah, so it's a way to form groups. It's a way to connect with other people who like what you like. It's another way to have sort of something you're looking at, but then doing things yourself and trying out some new movements, some new sequences, challenging yourself. So when I was a teenager is when the limbo came out, but it's also where the twist came out. And it's also Virginia reel and square dancing for me, and a lot of other things. And then it was things like John Denver and Peter, Paul, and Mary, because it's not just learning new ways to be and move, it's also learning new ideas and thoughts and hooking it up with what your values are and your beliefs. And most importantly, those hormones, the emotions, drama, excitement. And so music is an acceptable way to express extreme emotion without being emotional at a specific human being. And so we have all these movies or whatever, and as well as music, where people talk about their love life or talk about a story of what happened and all those things. And we live vicariously because what it says is, I don't need to have the accident to feel the pain of the accident. So Earth Angel, I mean, I'm back in an era, obviously, but for younger people than me, I think there's music that speaks to emotional events that allow you to feel it without having to actually live it, or if you live it, to let it go. And so music is that connecting thing that takes us to a place and a time and allows us to emotionally release or emotionally get energy. And it's cool about music, but that's adolescence. And so how many of you ever had a musical experience in adolescence that was sort of that you got such a high rush that you didn't know you were exhausted, you did not know how worn out you were, you didn't realize how bad your feet hurt, you didn't know that you had just about worn yourself. I mean, you were exhausted, dehydrated, and you had no idea. I mean, until later, because you were in such a high, a rush. So what do you think my message is here regarding using music that gets people really excited, real energized, really into it? What do we have to be careful of in the amber emerald abilities, in the mid state of dementia for sure? Do people always know what's happening internally when they're excited about how exciting this is? Oh, I know that one. Oh, that's a good one. Oh, yeah, play that one. Oh, yeah. Do they realize how much they've depleted themselves to where now they're exhausted and they're not actually safe now? They don't have enough energy to get themselves up and back where they were. They don't even remember where they're going. They actually can get lost in the moment of time because music takes people places, in places that you wouldn't necessarily think that would be the case. Yeah. All right, so let's go on to adulthood, because this is that really important thing for us to recognize how music is used. So think of moments in your life as an adult when music really played an important role. And I'll give you a couple. One is your wedding day. For those of you who've been married, there's always music on the wedding day. There's funerals or memorial services of people that you love and you've lost. There's music associated with that. There's always music associated with that. Where else do you find sometimes music is really important in an adult life? Where else have you found it for some people? What do you say, Shelley? Because you're an adult.
I think I am anyway. Well, I was thinking maybe in military service.
So in military, hang on, because you brought up an excellent one. So how do they use music in the military? And that's a real important feature, and I'm going to talk more about it later. What do they use it for?
Getting you up in the morning,
revelry,
go to bed,
taps.
They call you to.
They call you to meals.
I haven't been in the military, so.
They call you to meals if you're in an open area, and so there's a meal. There's a music that comes with meals.
Yeah.
What else though? In the military?
Oh, well, I was thinking of marching and parades.
Yeah, so every time you're having to do something miserable, like walk for long periods of time with a lot of equipment on you, and it's heavy and it's miserable and it's hot, or it's really cold, but what we're doing is doing it as a group. We're all doing it together. And so there's this call and respond, sound off, 1, 2, sound off, 3, 4, and it's that cadence. And so almost every branch of the military has those type songs that are cadence songs, and they're engaging songs, and we're together songs, and we're a team. We do things in a similar way. And so it builds a sense of camaraderie and relationship. And there's almost always a leader, and there's almost always a group of followers. Okay, so that's a great one. How else can you think of? Corey, anything you can think of right off the top, how you might use music as an adult, how you've used it?
I use music all the time for everything. When I exercise, or if I'm having a really bad day, I like to play certain things in the car to just like unwind. And so it's more about certain genres of music that satisfy different maybe emotional needs that I have.
Yeah, it's sort of a deep thing for you, and you use music every day.
Yeah, all day long.
Yeah, all day long. So you use music sort of like drug of choice. I mean, for you, it's something that you use to get your body and your brain in a good place, or to take it to a quiet place. Or so for you, being without music would be equivalent to going cold turkey with any kind of drug regime you needed for survival. And we would just take away your insulin, and we just say, well, you're okay. I mean, you don't need that. It's like, well, Corey actually does. What about you, Shelley? How wedded to music are you?
Oh, it's central to my life. I mean, I can't work without music. I can't work in total silence. I listen to classical music all day when I'm working. And then I use other music for other emotions.
So you actually have to have a background sound. Mm-hmm. So what would happen if we put your headphones on?
Oh, I'd be happy.
You'd be really happy. Would you come out very often?
Probably not.
Okay, so if we put headphones on you, you'd be happy to be all by yourself for hour upon hour upon hour. Yep. And you wouldn't even seek other people.
Probably not, no.
Yeah, that's interesting because you use it as background noise, but it actually is your friend. And it's a nice, easy friend that's not going to make very many demands on you. And it does exactly what you want it to. And so you can actually isolate yourself from the world if you have background noise of music. And when we make it headphones, then you don't have to put up with the background noise.
Right.
Corey, what about you? Headphones all day long?
No, I prefer my music out in the open and kind of loud.
Kind of loud.
So less loud than when I was younger. I'm a little sensitive to it now. And that's the reason I don't like to wear headphones, because it's just too, I feel enclosed.
Too intense, too close. So we have two people who use music extensively in their lives, and yet each of them needs it very, very differently. So when we're creating these ideas of how we're going to use music, finding out how they like to get their music, how do they like to get it into their brain? It turns out some people are very much headphone people, and some people are absolutely very much atmospheric music people.
So, hey, I'm back again. I just wondered, did you have a big aha right here at this moment, just like I did in the video? I mean, both Corey and I use music, and we listen to music all day. And I never thought about the fact that if I put headphones on, I would actually isolate myself from the world. Whereas that would be hard for Corey. Wow. What does that mean for you when you're trying to find music for the people that you're working with? Well, let's see what Teepa has to say.
It also turns out that not only volume matters, pitch matters a lot. So things that are of a higher pitch tend to only be tolerated for short windows of time, because it stimulates the brain in a very different way than things that have a deeper pitch, a more deep rhythmic pattern to them, but also they just don't go into that high register. And one of the reasons we think that is because human speech occurs in the higher register. And when you put music that's high pitched and there's speech mixed in with the environment, then your brain has to go on alert because there might be messages of intent there, rather than this is simply to enjoy. This is a thing you can enjoy. And so when we do music playlists for people, or we're thinking about different music, we might want to look at what octave it's presented in and consider the possibility of being thoughtful about dropping octaves as people are aging, because it turns out they can comprehend better in the lower octaves, but they also get more of the music in if we put it in the lower octaves. So let's go forward a little bit, and I want you to think about how you use music. How many times each day you might use music, or over the course of a week you might use music. And I'm going to go ahead and go through the laundry list, because I want our brains to really stretch a little bit here when we're talking about trying to help people living with dementia. So, do you use music to relax or get comfortable? And most people would say yes. And then we would be finding out what type of music, and we'll get to that in a second. Do you use music to emotionally connect or emotionally release? And again, many people do. How about music for a spiritual charge or a recharge when you're empty? You know, so many people use music of faith within their faith because it lifts them up when they're feeling that need to get filled up. It's where they get it. There are music songs for them. That's that thing that gets them to feel empowered again, to be able to go yet again. Music for new ideas or learning about something. So it's amazing. Many people might remember Conjunction, junction, what's your function? Schoolhouse Rock. Any of those things, because the Constitution, I'm a bill, I'm just a bill. All those old things that they put, Sesame Street, they went to that genre because they found out kids and adults both learn so much faster if you can put some rhythm to it. So they would take a fairly upbeat rhythm and then you add words to it. And I've been known to do the same kind of thing. We also know that music can generate laughter and fun. There are songs that just make you chuckle, and sometimes they're fairly inappropriate songs. So I can sort of remember back Dixie Chicks did one where they killed Earl and they put him in the trunk. And I can just remember when it first came out, I thought it was absolutely hysterical. And it was like, well, you know, they're committing murder. It's like, oh yeah. But it was that moment where, you know, the storyline was so, oh yeah, good job, girls. I mean, it was that kind of moment where when you thought about the message, it seemed kind of mean. But at the time, it was sort of a funny story that they were telling. And there's all kinds of those where they have a punchline, like the song, "Oh My Darling Clementine," or, you know, those kind of songs where they give you that, I've been working on the railroad, you know, and Dinah won't you blow, Dinah won't you blow, and there's lots of energy at the end of it. We also have music that gets us going or gets us active. Corey referred to that. That's like exercise music. And so some people really have certain beats that when they get going, man, you're running. You can run at a better rate. And actually, that's actually accurate. People travel at a more consistent and more reliable pace if they're doing it to music. So if I want somebody to walk with me, I might want to think about putting on something that's instrumental, not sing along, because sing along means we should sing together. Instrumental means we are either going to dance or walk together. So really thinking about what do I want them to do and what's the rhythm or the pace I think I want to try them at, so that they're in control, but they're moving as quickly and as briskly as possible. Because it also tends to get us into a rhythm so that we're not stopping and hesitating and stopping and hesitating. And so it keeps us moving more completely, so it can build endurance, which is really terrific as long as we're monitoring heart rate and respiratory rate and blood sugars and everything else. And finally, the last one, which Shelley had sort of brought up a little bit in the military, is you can actually use music to cue an activity or a change in activity. So music becomes something, when you hear a certain sound, you associate it with a certain activity or a certain pause, time to switch out. And so things like reveille and taps and music. So what we have found in some communities is they use a musical tone sequence to signify you should go and see where someone is. So you should go and check that you know where everybody is. And so they use it with aides, not with people living with dementia, but with actually people working the unit, to give them a reminder that it's time to do a check and see where everybody's at and what all they're doing. Because if I have several people I'm caring for, I can get involved in a task and really not realize how much time has passed. And so it's a heads up. Let's do a head check. Let's just do a head count. Let's make sure everybody is where they should be doing what they should be doing. And otherwise, I can skip that for a while to a place where it's been an hour and a half and I haven't checked on anybody because I've been doing what I needed to do, but I didn't really, well, she's always walking down the hall. It's like, yeah, except that the visitor opened the door at the end of the hall and she went on out. And that unfortunately can and does happen because people living with dementia follow somebody and the person they're following doesn't realize that they're being followed, and not all buildings have alarms on them, and not all people who are living with dementia are living in secured units. So my question for everybody on the call, and my question for folks who are looking at the recording, is how actually are you using music in your programs and in your care right now? What are you actively choosing to do with music? Because I've just laid out this whole way of seeing music. And so my first question is, well, how's everybody using it right now? Because if we aren't looking around to see what we're doing with music, then we won't know where we have strengths and where we might want to make changes. So I know that some people on the call don't have communities they're working in, but I know other people might. So Elaine, I know you do. Eileen, I know you have a community you do work in. I mean, a little bit.
Well, right, I just finished, actually. I just came from a class, I call it Drum Fit. And what I do is, well, what we do, we bought these very large beach balls, blew them up, turned over bridge chairs, stuck the ball in the bridge chair, and we bought drumsticks. I just came from this, and we're using music. Of course, it's a different variation of, range of motion.
Right.
And I do 4/2 or 2/2 or 3/2, and I play contemporary music that they seem to love. And what's interesting is it's loud, which I was hesitant, but the drums on the beach balls are loud. So the music being loud and the smiles and the joy on faces is just wonderful. So we've been doing that for a few weeks now.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you're talking about you have the music, you use the drums, and everybody's doing drumming, which is a bilateral, but somebody could do it if they only had one arm. There's no limit to that. Right. But what's exciting is they form community, and they're actually a band, if you will.
Right.
And they're supporting the rhythm of the music.
Right. And it's everyone from our memory care unit.
Cool.
We bring everyone in from the memory care unit, and it just lights up the room.
How about the staff? Are the staff participating?
Some of the staff are participating when they have time. They'll come in and they'll just find an empty chair, and but again, they'll pass by, and it's just such it just provokes the smiles, and people who I generally don't see any change of affect really begin to come out of a shell, so to speak.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
How many days of a month do you do that?
I do it every Monday. Right now, every Monday at 1:00. And
cool.
We're thinking about doing it up in our skilled rehab as opposed to just the memory care unit. Yeah.
Okay, I wonder if there's anybody, and this is my curiosity, I wonder if there's anybody who could pick another day, you could train them up. And so there's a second day of the week where people are getting that kind of workout.
Yes, absolutely. The issue becomes where do we store the balls? Because these are big, huge balls. So, but yes, yeah. I'm sure I could.
Or you start wondering whether there's
the life enrichment people are. Sorry?
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying the life enrichment people are very interested in this, but part of because part of me is a personal trainer, so I brought it over, and I use the dancing part in the legs, because it's hard not to use your legs when you're using your arms.
Like that.
Yeah. So I'm getting more of the wider community interested in this. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So, all right. Thank you. Anything else that you're doing with music that your community's doing that you know about?
Well, dance fitness. We're doing line dancing with some of our folks. And even if they're seated, using the patterning really does, promote there's a lot of cognitive value to using the patterning.
Right.
And it's more often it's fun when they don't get it right, because then everybody laughs at one another.
Everybody's laughing. It's okay to make mistakes in that kind of movement.
Exactly. Yeah,
cool.
Exactly. It really is a lot of fun. Yeah.
So have you noticed
those two things?
Have you noticed any other use of music in your community?
Well, in the memory care unit a couple of years ago, after Alive Inside, I went out and I got 15 of the little nanos. But it's hard to, as people change, it's hard to get our life enrichment folks to then once again readdress the genre and sort of clean up what was there. And
Right.
So it's hard to stay on top of that.
Yeah. And so I think yours is more typical for the experience of even with the headphones and with the Nano and with the playlist. Right. There's a greater challenge there for many people to keep it updated and make it individualized and make sure it gets on people pretty regularly.
Very much so. Very much
so here's the sad part. So in the good part, once a week or maybe twice a week, people are getting music, focused music activity. And yet we had at least 2 people on this call say they use music every day in a variety of ways. And so one of the things we know about music is it actually has huge power to take distress and turn it into less distress. And yet that very basic idea is not put into action. And yet what we'll have is a lot of background noise in units and in communities. And we're not thinking, how could I turn that around? And how could I get certain people to buy in on that? So Marion, anything over your way that you guys do in regard to music?
I was just thinking, how can we get these other people to buy into this?
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. I feel like I keep tooting my horn. We need to do more of this. And I'm only one person, but I'm a psychotherapist. And so I will ask people about music, and I have several CD players and loan them out and have headphones and music in memory. But again, I can't do that program myself. So I'm trying to find somebody to jump on the bandwagon. And I personally, yes, my thing is we need more music. We have really good musicians who come and do what do you call them? Passive programs.
Yep. Entertainment.
They have a great one tonight. And at the very least, we should get Mr. So-and-so to go to that because he doesn't come out of his room. But beyond that is, they have some, I tend to be silly. So I'll go into the dining room and they have a musician in there and I'm going to be doing, I kind of think, guys, come on, get up and do it with me.
Yeah, come on, let's create a little positive. Let's get a little energy flow going here.
Make it fun,
Make it fun, get people engaged. Yeah, and so what we have is a big hole in the fabric, I think is where we're at when it comes to music. And people had great intent with the music and memory program, but what I see is I see it kick off strong and then I see it dwindle fairly rapidly. Because it's actually fairly complex to get headphones on people and to recharge the units and make sure the playlist is right. And it's not that hard and can be made a part of everybody's day, but even that is a challenge. And what we're talking about is going well beyond that. But it also, unfortunately, we miss so many connections with people by not doing it. And they're just real simple connections that build connections that, in fact, people will tolerate us doing more things. And so I'm going to show you an example of us having somebody tolerate doing more things. So I'm going to have you watch Susie a little bit. Now, some of you have seen Susie before. Susie is a lady with pretty advanced dementia. And I want you to watch how we use music to transition her, because you'll see me bring her to the bathroom. And the way I get her to the bathroom, she has no idea where I'm taking her. She has no idea what we're up to. But the reason she came with me is I stood to the side of her in supportive stance, and I sang the first verse and I started moving, just as you're suggested, Marion. And then I put my hands out to her and she came along. And so this is us getting very close to our destination. And she still doesn't know where we're going. So let's sort of take a look here and see what happens. And watch her movement pattern.
As I lay sleeping, I dreamed I held you in my arms. When I awoke, dear, I was mistaken. So I hung my head and I cried.
Pause. Now, the reason we're singing in such a high-pitched voice is what? Because it wasn't my idea.
You were singing in her range.
Yeah, that's where Susie's voice is. Susie's voice is a head voice because Susie doesn't use breath control. And the reason Susie doesn't use breath control is she's using her trunk to walk. So she has done so little movement that it actually takes her whole trunk, and she stabilizes her body through her trunk to walk. And so all she has is a head voice. So she has to be way up here because she can't take a deep breath of air because she's using her trunk to stabilize her body as she's walking along. And what I would say is there were lots of missed opportunities with Susie to have her work on singing and dancing and walking. But because Susie's high risk for falls, what ends up happening is people actually demobilize Susie so she won't fall, rather than improve her mobility with singing and dancing and moving to improve her mobility so she has the ability. What you notice is Susie doesn't move in a rotational pattern at all. Susie is only straight line movement. So back up, Corey, a little bit and look at how Susie comes through the doorway. Susie has monocular vision. She's not even sure she'll fit through the doorway, but watch this turn. We have to do a slow turn because Susie can't turn her body at all.
I dreamed I held you in my arms. When I awoke, dear, I was mistaken.
Here we go, another turn.
So I hung my head and I cried.
So what this says is we've missed so many chances along the way with this woman to maintain some rotational component, to do things with her body, that now when she goes to move her whole body, she's incredibly high risk for pitching forward or pitching to the side and not being able to heal or recover. And unfortunately, we were party to that because we could have, Susie loves music, but we got sloppy and we weren't very proactive at using music to help Susie move around. So what I would like to do now is, Corey, if you could cut forward in this, and we can go through this really quickly. Actually, pause a second. Don't actually, sorry, go back. I want you to listen to Susie trying to talk early in this video clip. Okay, so go ahead and let.
My head and I cried.
We're going to brush your teeth, Mary. You ready to do that?
I don't know.
You don't know? I'll help you. Will that work? I've got your toothbrush.
Really?
And I've got your toothpaste.
Good.
I'm going to open up the toothpaste. Here, I'll have you go ahead and put it on. Let me switch to the other side. The reason I switched to the other side is that I know Susie's dominant hand is her right hand, and I want to use the skill that she's practiced for many years. You hold to me and I'll put it on.
Okay, there it is.
Notice how she grips on my arm as I squeeze the toothpaste out.
And now you heard she has single words, a couple words. So she was singing pretty well, but she doesn't have a lot of language. So right about there, Corey. Let's see what happens. We've done her mouth care, which stimulated her mouth. Now let's see what happens.
Jesus, for the little children, all the little children of the world.
We know she likes to sing. What I do is use this as a distractor to make it possible for us to continue on and finish this activity. Now look in the mirror. What do you think? How your teeth feel? How do your teeth feel?
Pause.
Pretty good.
Oh,
What'd she just do with her head? She turned her neck, which is actually the first time you see her turn her neck. So music and then interest in now what'd she just say? Pretty good. Let's see what happens next.
right. I'll take pretty good.
Just loaded a little bit, that's all right.
That's okay. Okay. You want to run a comb through your head?
So she gave me like 6 to 8 words. They're smarting a little bit, but that's okay. Now, you may not have been able to get all the fine detail of that, but I said, how does it feel? And they're smarting a little bit, but that's okay because her lips were bothering her more than her mouth, which is interesting for Susie.
Well, guys, I'm back again. So since Teepa had us pause here, what are you thinking? Are there some places that you haven't been using music that you might now want to try? Who else might be part of your music movement within your organization or working with the person that you're working with if you're doing a one-on-one? She's going to give you some more time here to work. So you might want to get out a pencil and paper and start writing down some things if you haven't already done that. Let's see what she has to say.
What I want us to think about is when we talk about music programs and we're thinking about rhythm programs, let's start with coming up with 5 childhood songs. And I'm going to put you to work here. Songs from childhood that made you move, that got you to count, that taught you something, that made you laugh or made you feel safe. So I'm going to give you a few seconds here to think about at least 5 songs. You can pick which one fits where, but at least 5 songs that you remember from being a little kid, songs that made you move in some fashion, songs that got you to count, songs that taught you something, songs that made you laugh, and songs that made you feel safe. So from that list, come up with 5 songs. All right, so let's see what some folks have. Let me hear some of your songs. So who's got one you're willing to start with?
Which category do you want first?
Oh, it doesn't matter. You get to pick.
The ants go marching.
Oh, there you go. So did you pick it as a marching song or a counting song?
Marching or movement.
A movement song. Okay. So now what we're going to do is, okay, so you got the everybody get your hands out, sit tall or stand, you can be where you're at. And we're going to use our hands. The ants go marching one by one, hurrah, hurrah. The ants go marching one by one, hurrah, hurrah. The ants go marching one by one. The last one stops to shoot a gun, and they all go marching round and round, down on the ground. Now, what I did is called drumming. Mm-hmm. Because what I did is I took you and I got you to match my rhythm. And I bet if I had a tape recorder, all of you within 1 or 2 beats were exactly on beat with me. And so this is where you could have people sitting at a table and that simple song, doesn't matter which one it was, in this case it was the Ants Go Marching. What it allows us to do is left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, or right, left. But what it's causing is reciprocal body movement. And so we're getting left side of the brain, right side of the brain, left side of the brain, right side of the brain. So people think about music as entertainment again, but here we were actually doing either other side. And the second time through, I'd say, okay, let's all sing together while we're doing it, because now I'm doing trunk control, breathing, and arm motions. And the reason I'm doing it on your thighs is you don't have to tie up your rib cage to put your hands on your thighs. And so it allows you to use your ribs and your breathing capacity as you're doing it. Okay, what's another song?
I have 10 Little Indians. We're counting.
Okay. So let's try it. Thumbs up. We'll start with a thumb. 1 little, 2 little, 3 little Indians, 4 little, 5 little, 6 little Indians, 7 little, 8 little, 9 little Indians, 10 little Indian boys. 10 little, 9 little, 8 little Indians, 7 little, 6 little, 5 little Indians, 4 little, 3 little, 2 little Indian, 1 little Indian boy. Now, the people who are in amber state, which means they like that rhythm and they like repetition, they're going to want to do it again and again, and coming all the way up and going all the way back down. how did you think of that, Shelley? Were you thinking a counting song or were you thinking something else?
No, I was thinking a counting song because that's one I used to do all the time.
Right. And so what it actually was, take your fingers, was using individual isolated finger movement. So you use it as counting, but what my brain is now getting to do is see and move my fingers in an isolated fashion, one side and then the other side, and then reverse it. So we're starting to be able to notice if we do it a couple times, then somebody gets to lock into that. And okay, so do this with your fingers. If you're a person living with dementia, how often do you get to isolate your fingers and use them one at a time to do something?
Very often.
Not very often. People don't even think about this isolated finger movement, and yet the ability to isolate and move your fingers is the kicker that takes you from an amber state to a ruby state, where all I have is gross hand function now, where all my fingers have to move at the same time because I lack the ability to isolate those movements. And so a 2 minute, a 3 minute activity is getting me to isolate finger movements, visualize, and do it with my voice. And so all of a sudden I'm integrated. It's an integrated action. Okay. Who else has another song?
I have the Hokey Pokey.
Oh, Hokey Pokey. Now that one's got high energy. Right. And so I had a joke at some point that I do when I do humor that says, there was very sad news this week. Louis LePew, or whatever his last name is, who created the Hokey Pokey, died this week. And the trouble began when at the funeral, somebody decided to sing the song, you know. They couldn't keep him in the coffin. Anyway, so anyhow, so with the Hokey Pokey, what's nice about it, the classic end of the Hokey Pokey is that's what it's all about. You know, so you do this and you do this and then you clap. So we're starting to notice whether people can move individual body parts, whether they're able to pay attention to that. And we can certainly modify it, but it's big movement, big movement. So go ahead and do that with your arm. You put your right arm in, you take your right arm out, you put your right arm in and just shake it all about. Now go ahead and do it again. When you put your arm in, realize if you're holding on with your other arm, you're doing a rotational movement through your trunk. Now take it out and you're doing the reverse rotational movement. If I asked you to do that as a movement, your brain would go, I don't think so. But automatically, without thinking, you'll rotate. Now switch sides. Now we're getting it on the opposite side. And if I have you in a chair with a low back and low arms, you can get much better range. And so all of a sudden, I've got upper body range of motion. The lower body, not so much if you're sitting. You could get it if you were standing, but this is huge for upper body movement when people are mostly chair bound or spending a lot of time in a chair. So I want to do one more song of childhood because I think what I want to put out there is these are songs many, many people from many, many areas are familiar with. These are not, we have to learn these songs. Even kids today still do these songs. These are the kind of songs that have been around for ages and ages, and they continue to be around. So what's another one? What you got, Marion?
So I was thinking of a resident supposed to move her arms more. And so I said, how about Itsy Bitsy Spider, you know?
Uh-huh.
Get her to go up and down. And she took that. She did it all week like it was her homework. It was so funny.
Perfect, because what she got the idea, but she could her brain could hook it onto this pattern of childhood. And because all these motions, she was actually successful. And I'm going to guarantee you when she did it the first time, what did you guys do?
Yeah, was it great?
Yeah, absolutely. You got it. That's terrific. So for the first time, probably in a little bit, instead of, oh my gosh, reach, can you put your arm up? Put your arm up. Can you put your arm up? what we have is just an automatic action. And she could do that a lot easier than follow directions. Mm-hmm. So yeah, cool. So that's a great one. Here's mine. There was an old woman who swallowed a fly. I don't know why she swallowed a fly. Perhaps she'll die. There was an old woman. Now, the reason that I picked that one is it actually does a lot with breath control. As you add layer to layer to layer, you have to really be able to sustain your breathing. And so it's one of those old ones, but it also causes you to, there was an old woman who swallowed a horse. She died, of course. That's at the end. But before that, there's many other things she swallowed. And it swallowed the dog to catch the cat, to catch the mouse, to catch the duck, to catch the bird, to catch the thing, to catch the spider that wiggled and jiggled and tiggled inside her. She swallowed the spider to catch the fly. And so what happens is we can work on breath control, which actually turns out to be really, really important as we get into the later stages of the disease. Because if people can't take a deep breath and blow out, it means they also can't cough to clear their throat. They can't cough when they get fluid in their lungs. They can't actually take a good deep breath in and force it out to be able to protect themselves. And it all starts with inactivity. And so all of a sudden, something like singing and sustained singing, and that, you know, the old gray mare, she ain't what she used to be, ain't what she used to be, ain't what she used to be. And you want to sing those things that have those repeating lines in them because you have to catch your breath between the lines. And so what we're doing is helping people breathe. And so people don't look at music that way, but boy, is it powerful. I can get people to change volume. And so somebody who's very soft, like Susie, when she gets going, could actually pick up her volume a little bit. And that means I can hear her better. So now I'm going to switch gears on you. Now you have to think of 5 songs from adolescence. Now, these are a little different. So I'm wanting you to really think in your teenage years, music from your teenage years and what you have there. And I'll give you a couple minutes here to think. And then I'll go and we'll talk about the difference between you and somebody who's now in their 80s. So you do you first, and then I'll give you the added element here. Okay, so what do you guys have for teenage music? What do you got, Shelley?
Anything by ABBA.
Mama,
oh. Here I go again, Mama. So.
Okay, so anything from ABBA, which would include anything from, what's the movie that's so popular?
Mamma Mia.
Mamma Mia, there you go. I was going to say anything from Mamma Mia.
Right.
And somebody might have YMCA. It's fun to, yeah, I'm older than that, but that's cool. All right, what else do you guys have? What other kind of adolescent music do you have in mind? What you got, Eileen? You had music, I know you did.
For me, I mean, I was very much into disco. You know, I was Saturday Night Fever, you know.
Yeah, John Travolta. So yeah, this motion.
Yeah. Right. It was all about Saturday Night Fever and, you know, going to the disco and.
Wow. Oh, you are telling your age. Wow.
Oh, I did, totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Disco Inferno.
Oh, yeah. So that kind of beat, and it turns out that music has a really engaging beat to it. So could you give us the beat of some of the disco? What would that sound like?
Let's see. Night fever, night fever. Night fever, night fever.
So what you see Shelley doing and what you see me doing is this business where you get your body going. So what teenagers are really into is learning how to use their bodies to express themselves one way or the other. So, you know, back in my years, it was more like Elvis Presley and the Beatles.
Right.
And, you know, that gang right there, or the choo-choo train. What was that one? Locomotion.
Oh, right. Everybody's doing a
dance now.
Come on, baby, do
the locomotion.
My office mate thinks I'm crazy.
Yeah, well, you know, hey, they already think you're crazy, I think. Yeah. Pretty certain. Sure. So what we're talking about here, now these are more sophisticated rhythms, and these are rhythms that actually encourage, now notice when you did it, you're getting a lot more trunk movement here. So you're getting upper body on lower body movement, and you're doing a lot more of this rhythm section kinds of things, whether it's square dancing. So think of square dance, da-da-da, or polka, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da, 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 da. So these are where you start to get more dance rhythms. Teenagers, when we really start moving more of a rhythm section where we're using our bodies in more vigorous ways. We're actually picking one foot up, doing something with the other side, putting the other foot down, using our bodies, and whatever it is, whatever dance genre, where there's a lot more active movement in this whole pattern with adolescence. So what you're going to see often when we move to adolescent music is we have definitely more emotion to it, but we also have a lot more action invested in it, whether it's close to close body dancing or whether it's showing off on your own dancing. And almost every generation has some of both. So we could have Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy of Company B. Don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Anyone else but me. No, 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 anyone else but me. And it turns out, interestingly enough, that if we go to big band, almost all generations respond very well to big band. And if you think about big band has that really, you guys sort of described it, even with disco, with some of the other kinds of music that there are. Big band has this element of move your whole body, get your whole body going. Chattanooga choo-choo, come on and choo-choo me home. Pardon me, boys. And so one of the things to think about is music that crosses generations. And it turns out big band is one of those really powerful ones that can encourage a lot of sophisticated and high quality movement and rotational movements. And you can do it in a pattern of in a variety of ways, and yet it binds people together. So interestingly enough, you can often get care providers and people living with dementia to engage with one another with what we call big band music. There's just something about that rhythm, that syncopation, that seems to draw people into a similar pattern of movement. Anybody else have another one from adolescence that you want to add in? So I'll take you then to the other side of the street, which is that's one that brings energy up. Adolescence is also where you start using music to calm yourself or to quiet yourself or to emote. And so there's often a lot of songs associated with your adolescence that were emotionally charged songs. They have value, they have meaning to you. So in my generation, it would have been One Tin Soldier, or Where Have All the Flowers Gone, or some of those songs that were an indication that there's loss. There's some kind of loss. You go into a situation, it may not work out the way you want. Those kind of situations. And when we're talking about the group now that's in their mid-80s, we're talking about believe it or not, we're talking about Teen Angel and April Love and songs that, they're not the old songs. They're somewhere in the, the mid 40s range, because that's pretty much when they would have been teenagers. So what are your guys' thoughts when you think about music that has certainly a fair element of emotion to it? And how could we use that then? And how do we need to be careful of it?
First thing that came to my mind was We Are the World.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was a young adult with that, or not young, relatively. I was a relatively young adult when they were doing We Are the World. Calypso was more my, that period of time when we were starting to really, look at that thing. So what would happen if we pick a song that will take you back to a really strong emotional event? What might we find happening?
I would express that emotion again.
You would be expressing that emotion again. What else might you do if you were a little more in dementia and more like an emerald state, which means you get lost in time and place fairly easily? With limited cueing, you can go into different places and different times in your life and not realize you've traveled. You think you are there.
Yeah. It might be a trigger to feel sad or start to hallucinate or think your parents are still alive or even want to go home.
Yeah. And so it can be a powerful tool. And if we don't know we're doing it, it becomes dangerous.
Yep.
If we're aware we're going back and we have an awareness of that, we could help people if they want to visit, go there and then come back. But we've got to be thoughtful about it. So one of the things about adolescence is that it's such a powerful emotional time that once people go there, sometimes it is difficult for them to come back. And Lauren, who I know is on the call or has been on the call, one of the things that if she hears Godspell, it really takes her back to her teenagers because she was in the musical production. That's one of the things they did. And so for her, with Lewy body, one of the things to be careful of is if she's already in a low point and she goes there, what could happen is her brain could say, you know what, I need to get to the rehearsal, which is not where you thought it would go at all. And that's particularly being sensitive to people who have different types of dementia, to realize that what we think we're doing because of these deep connections to emotions in adolescence, for sure, that's the most risky time to take somebody somewhere and not realize you're doing it. Because I would encourage us more to think of movement stuff than emotional songs of adolescence, unless we are very careful and we're going to monitor afterward that we haven't left someone somewhere when we went and we came back and they weren't able to make the journey back. So I think that's one caution when we're using music, because I think people can be pretty easygoing about music and totally miss how risky it can be if you're not thoughtful and you're not aware.
Would that be something more appropriate for diamonds?
It definitely is very appropriate for diamonds, because that's called reminiscing. And then I can talk about what happened, and I can talk about my boyfriend, and I can talk about it. And I remember it in past tense.
Stories and connect with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. And so when I know I have somebody who has the ability to reminisce and know that they're not traveling through time, that's when that adolescent music is really helpful and really potent and often very evocative and helps me feel differently. And I get to let go of some things that maybe, and opens a door for many people to have a conversation that might be off. You may never get to have the conversation if you don't do it.
So, hey guys, I'm back again. I just wanted to pop in here with a slide about the gems, because we've been talking a lot about different gem states, and I'm just not sure that you all know what all of our gems are. Because Eileen was talking about, would this music work, or would the way that we use music to remember things work for diamonds? So here's a list. This allows you to see our 6 gems, right? So sapphires, those are most of us, right? True blue with healthy brains. Diamonds are people who are clear but sharp, and they need routines. And so they need help, but they're also able to do things on their own. Teepa spent a little bit of time talking about the emeralds here, about people who are on the go, the ones who might travel through time and get caught in that emotion of the songs, right? And then she also mentioned a lot about ambers and the fact that ambers who are about sensation and how good things feel might continue to want to do things over and over and over again. And then she also mentioned a little bit about rubies and how fine motor skill goes away. So when you're exercising your fingers, that helps with the fine motor skills so that rubies don't go to ruby too quickly, right? She didn't mention anything about pearls, but just know that pearls still can use music and enjoy music as well. Okay, so I just thought if you wanted to see this, it might be helpful. And if you want to know more about the gems, check out the website, teepasnow.com. You might also want to see some of our webinars about the gems. Okay, I'll be back in a little bit. Let's hear what she has to say.
So now I'm going to ask you, what types of music are there out there? And I'm going to get you started. I'm going to ask folks to see if you can come up with at least 5 types of music. And I'm going to use 3 of them, so you can't use my 3. So the first one would be country. And I could add country western, but mostly country music. Rap. And then what we call folk music. And I would say American, or there are folk musics from other countries. And often those folk musics were originally sung in their native language. And so folk music allows us to go back to our native language. So one of the childhood songs is Are You Sleeping? Which I believe I actually know the words to it in about 6 or 7 languages, which is about the only way I know words in other languages, I believe, in many cases. But I'm actually pretty good at Are You Sleeping, Brother John? Or Brother Jakob, or you name it, and I know several different ones. So go ahead and give me what you got, and then I'll give you a laundry list. So what do you have so far, Shelley?
Classical.
I knew you were going there.
Operatic.
Oh, opera. Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, musicals came to my head from that.
Ah, Broadway shows.
Broadway shows.
Cool.
And then I was like reggae.
Oh, reggae. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
don't worry.
I only got those.
Be happy.
Pop.
And then pop. Okay. All right.
Ellie,
what you got?
I got funk.
Mm-hmm. Funk. Oh, yeah. You're funk. In that era. Yeah.
I also have Latin.
Oh, yeah.
Latin. Let's see. Jazz, of course.
Oh, jazz. Yep. Yeah. Jazz is a good one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Rock and roll. I don't know whether we said
that. Yeah. Rock and roll. Okay.
Rock and roll.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Marion, do you have anything to add to the list?
Did we say jazz?
She did say jazz.
Bluegrass.
Oh, bluegrass. Yep, we got bluegrass. Okay.
I think that there's rock and then there's hard rock.
Oh, hard rock. Yeah, that's a different thing. Hard rock is different than rock and roll for sure. Ask anybody who's into one or the other.
Yeah. No, but I think that's everybody else covered.
That's what you got. Okay. Anybody else want to add anything on?
I just thought of grunge.
Oh, grunge. All right. Well, I'll go on forward, and I'm going to actually take you to the part where I have a couple of different lists. So here's some ideas. You've got polkas and marches and waltzes and songs and seasonal songs and holiday songs and color theme songs, emotional theme songs, gay 90s songs of the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, sing-along favorites, songs of America, kids song, Broadway hits, work songs, weather theme songs, patriotic songs, hymns, musical, gospel, bluegrass, ragtime, country western, classical opera, big band, blues, Dixieland, barbershop quartet, rounds, and movement songs. So I put those all out there because I think people get limited and we don't even think in sometimes these different kind of categories, but sometimes getting ourselves to think of weather theme songs is a total different way of doing it. And if you have diamonds, it can actually, okay, we're going to start with, I'll have one weather theme and then you guys add on. Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful.
I sing it all the time.
Yeah. So I've got to know, what else do people have?
Blue skies smiling at me. Nothing but blue skies do I see.
Okay, cool. What else you got?
It's a beautiful morning.
Oh, cool. Nice. What else have we got?
Oh, what a beautiful morning.
Raindrops keep falling on my head. There you go. So,
Sunrise, sunset.
oh, good job. There you go. Okay. So, what we have is we can pick a category. And what's fun about it is for people who are in fairly early state, what I'm actually doing is calling up your memory registers. And for people who are more in the middle of the disease, what I could do is play a line or two of the music. And very often that triggers the song. And then there's the sing along phenomenon. So what can happen with any of these categories, we can use them as a cognitive stimulation activity. And depending on the ability of the individuals, what we can start with is whatever their ability is, that's where we start. And I give an example and then we build from there. So we're thinking of patriotic songs. Over hill, over dale, we will hit the dusty trail. Hey, what else have you got?
I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy.
There you go. What's another one? Make at least.
Oh, beautiful for spacious sky.
All right, nice job. So here we could, if we have somebody who's not that capable, what we can start with is a list of songs. And we can say, now, I'm going to play a piece and see if you recognize which one this is. And then they pick the song from the playlist.
Yeah.
And what we can also do, for instance, is what I'm going to do with this one is put the words up on a screen rather than having pieces of paper that everybody has to keep up with. So here we go. How much is that doggy in the window? There you go. And this one's a poem, not music. Pussycat, pussycat. I've been to London to visit the Queen. And this could be a call and response. So we're starting to get people to engage with us. Oh, where has my little dog gone? Okay, so we have those songs. And then I have, there's a little white duck sitting in the water, a little white duck doing what he oughter.
Don't know that one.
And so then we have a laundry list of a bunch of other animal songs. Mm-hmm. And so what could we do? Do this with your watch. Do this. This is what we do while we're waiting for dinner to be served. This is what we do while people are gathering. This is what we do in the middle of the space where nothing's going on. Just like Corey said, just like Shelley said, music is a fabric. And what we don't think of are what are simple ways we can bring music back into the world of somebody living with dementia. And it's not headphones, it's us and what we choose to do. So I'm going to pause here because we have just a couple minutes to see if anybody has some questions or some thoughts. I have on here, how can you learn songs? Because one of the realities I'll tell you is a lot of folks in communities don't know as many songs as we wish they would. They know their music, but getting curious. And this is actually a laundry list of where I have gone online and found songs so that, look, here's a whole bunch. And these are all free locations, or they were the last time I checked. So I'll pause there because what I want to do is find out, what are you guys thinking, having been through this whole thing and realize, we can't change the world, but we can make changes and we can choose some things to do that might be helpful. So of everything we've talked about, where's your head right now? What are you thinking? What's possible for you?
I'm confident in myself, the lunatic that I am, being able to really spirit people. It's being able to have the staff and some of the CNAs and pick up on this and really get them going with this, because they can see the results of it. Then when I sort of throw them the ball, you know, it's people
Yeah.
sort of close up, and so how do I get them to open up?
Yeah. So what did I have you guys open up with? What did I ask you questions about?
Ourselves.
So I'm wondering if we start by asking staff, tell me 3 songs you remember from being a little kid. And I get them engaged by sucking them in with, I take their songs they pick and I say, so I'm going to do an activity. And if you would just at least come, because I'm going to do some of the songs you suggested. And I'm curious to see what will happen.
Good idea.
And so we start to role model what we would like them to do. But I start by asking them, what are songs you already know? So that I'm not trying to get them to do something that's mine. I'm going to do something that's theirs.
Right.
And how many times did you see me do that during today?
Yeah, throughout.
Yeah, and so it's a way that we can get people to start doing the thing we want them to do when they can't figure out how to do the thing we want them to do. And we're getting frustrated because we can't figure out how to get it to happen.
Right.
And sometimes we're being a little bit, we're working with people, but we haven't really turned outward first and asked those people what they're comfortable with, so that that's what I start with. And it's just a thought to open the door to music rather than just the headphones.
Well, hi, I'm back from my last time. I wanted to say I hope that you had a really good time watching this and it's given you some good ideas. And I want to leave you with a couple of questions. So what are you going to do now that you've learned a little bit about music and maybe looked at new ways to use it in your everyday work? One of the things that came to me in watching this and actually in being a participant on the webinar was one of the biggest factors was that thing about, you know, you have an idea, but you may not have looked outside first. So maybe what we want to do if we're going to bring music in new and different ways is to get that help from outside of ourselves, like, right? So asking somebody, what are their favorite songs and how could we use those in an activity so that they will want to come and be involved in the activity as well, the person who doesn't have to mention them. But actually we can also ask them too, right? Okay, I hope this has been a helpful series for you or a session for you, and maybe I'll see you at another one in the future. Thanks so much. Keep visiting and keep working and doing the great job that you're doing. Bye-bye.